So yeah, I've been talking about our company for the last 40 minutes, but I will, I guess, do a more detailed introduction about our company. So our mission is to conquer cancer through AI, and we're doing two things: cancer diagnostics and cancer treatment. And so the question we first asked is why cancer? So why focus on cancer? So cancer is one of the major diseases that is threatening human society. The incidence rate has been growing, and it's one of the leading cause of deaths throughout the world. And in Korea, it is the number one cause of death by far. So it's obviously a very important disease that need to be solved. And we also believe that AI is there's a good fit between cancer and AI because cancer is a very, very complex disease. So you think about lung cancer, you think about breast cancer. So it's a very general term, but if you look into the details, it actually involves like thousands, maybe 10,000s or even more different types of cancer. So it makes it very difficult to diagnose. It makes it difficult to treat. And AI is, I guess, at this point, is the state-of-the-art technology to analyze complex data. So there's a very good fit between applying AI to solving cancer's complexity. So two reasons why we chose cancer. One is a very important, a major disease that need to be solved. And two, there's a good fit between AI and cancer. So there's two ways to conquer cancer. One is to enable more effective treatment or enable more effective diagnosis and screening. So if you diagnose cancer at an earlier stage, I think this is common knowledge that it's treatable and the survival rate is much higher. So a stage 3 lung cancer, the survival rate, 5-year survival rate is around 20 or even less. Stage 1 lung cancer is as high as 80%. So depending on the stage, there's a big difference in terms of the outcome. So it's very important to enable more effective screening and diagnosis, and we're trying to do that with AI. The treatment side, there's a lot of research done. My number that I have in mind is like around 200 billion that's spent every year on cancer research. And the response rate for chemotherapy for advanced cancer is less than 25%. So the treatment has not been too effective. So we're trying to do that with AI, enable that with AI. So with the cancer screening part, we have two main products right now that is commercial. We have others that is in development, but we have two products that are commercial. One is for chest X-ray, and another one is for mammography. So these two imaging tests are the basic for lung cancer screening and breast cancer screening. And they're also two of the most commonly used imaging tests throughout the world. So that's why we focused on this area as our first target. And here below is some of our clinical results from our clinical studies. So you can see how our AI has been demonstrated to be much significantly more better performing than the radiologist. And most importantly, when the radiologists use our AI as a second reader, their performance level is significantly increased. So these kind of studies have proven that the AI is valuable and it can actually give a lot of value for clinical outcome. So this is a case that I want to talk about. So it's a X-ray of a male aged 54 who was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer in 2016. This patient actually visited the same hospital starting from 2013, like every year. But before 2016, he was diagnosed to be normal. So there was cancer, but it was actually missed. This is because the nodule was too small to be looked or detected in the X-ray. It was not a mistake by the doctor. It was just because it was just too small to be seen in the X-ray. So when we applied this with our AI, you can see how the AI detected this lung cancer even 3 years before it was diagnosed. Because it is so good it's very sensitive to even detecting very small lesions that are hardly visible through the human eye. So if this patient would have used AI, this patient would have been diagnosed with lung cancer 3 years earlier, and that would have been the difference between cure and no cure. So this is the kind of impact that we're trying to bring to healthcare. So 7 out of 10, top 10 university hospitals are using our products in actual clinical practice in Korea. And we are scaling that out globally through our major partnerships with the vendors. And we are trying to become the new global standard of care for chest and breast imaging as a must-have product for high-quality healthcare. And through these partnerships and other efforts, we are scaling out our commercialization efforts as fast as possible. Moving on to the second part that we do, cancer treatment. For this area, it's a little different from the diagnostic side. The problem here is that because cancer is so complex and there's so many different subtypes of cancer, there is no one drug that can cure like every cancer patient because cancer patients are all different. So identifying which patients respond to which specific treatment is key, because if you do it on a general approach, for example, a drug will be only effective less than 10%. But if we enrich the patients and we narrow down the patients that have response to a specific treatment, then the treatment response becomes higher than 50%. So a personalized approach to cancer treatment is very important. So understanding and matching which patient would respond to which specific treatment is key. And because that involves complex medical data, that's where we are applying our AI to identify which patients would respond to which specific treatment. This is one area that we're focusing on, which is digital pathology. It's a tissue data that has a lot of information that is relevant to immunotherapy. So it's like, the analogy is like analyzing cars in the satellite map of Seoul. So you can understand how complex that data would be, and that no human expert will be able to analyze such complex data, such vast data. And that's where the AI is coming in. So we're applying our AI to analyze these kind of complex data, to identify patterns that are predictive of treatment. And according to some of our studies that we conducted, the predictive value is actually very high compared to other. So PD-L1 is the current biomarker that is used for deciding whether a patient would receive immunotherapy or not. And if we add our AI, we can identify 50% more patients who would respond well to immunotherapy. So there's a lot of significant value for patient care. And obviously, this leads to collaboration with biopharma company, because biopharma companies are the ones that are developing the drugs, and we're the company that's developing the biomarker that needs to be paired specific to the drugs. And according to some of our studies that we have conducted in the phase 1 clinical trials, you can see how the accuracy level is very high. So here in the below is a graph of our clinical phase 1 trial that we have conducted with a small biopharma company in Korea. You can see how the Luniscope predicted who would respond like 100%. So although the number was too small, so we can't make a definitive conclusion whether it's 100%, we can see how the AI is very effective in identifying which patients respond to the drug or not. So because of the successful results of this clinical trial, phase 1, we're moving on to phase 2, where the trial itself will be designed based on AI, and the AI results would be the inclusion criteria on who would receive this treatment, and we would analyze whether this drug would be effective or not in that perspective. So the pharma company would benefit from using the biomarker because the overall response of the drug would be high, and that would lead to higher chances of getting this drug approved. So there's a win-win situation between the drug company and the biomarker company, which is us. So these are the kind of activities that we are trying to move forward with and scale out. The advantage from our perspective is that the AI can be scaled out. So it doesn't have to be one specific biology that we focus. We can focus on specific cells or different cells, and we can scale out and apply this in various sectors of cancer treatment. So our vision is to apply our AI in the entire diagnostic and treatment spectrum of cancer care, whether it be personalized screening, whether it be precision diagnostics, personalized therapy, or precision monitoring that's very relevant for cancer care. So that'll be all. Thank you very much.